Bienvenidos, señores y señores, to another episode of the Bleed Lows Podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows Podcast is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, football, college football, boxing, golf, and more. Bet Online continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting, and your favorite casino and card games are available to play right from your phone. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. And joining us on the carne asada, of course, is La Reina de Playa Larga, Amy Cuevas, and Babyface. So I know the last episode was a little bit of a downer. I appreciate the kind words from those of you who did listen to that episode or watch the episode. And we will try not to be as depressing on this one as we were on the last one. But we are going to start with just a quick update. The new information on the Julio deal. First of all, as of Wednesday, he was placed on administrative leave, which we all knew was going to happen. It was all just a matter of time. So now he is on leave. And then the only other new information, and this came out via the LA Times, it looks like I'm going to read this. This is from the LA Times. I want to give credit. This is Jack Harris of the LA Times and Bill Shaken. It looks like they're working together on this story. But from their story in the LA Times, a concerned citizen saw a man attacking a woman after a soccer match at Exposition Park. This concerned man flagged down the police. This man was unaware that the man was Dodgers pitcher Julio Urías. And that's according to the report that was released on Thursday. Exposition Park management has released limited information about what led up to the arrest for suspicion of domestic violence on Sunday. It seems the person who flagged down the officers after the game between LAFC and Inter Miami, the citizen saw a man attacking the woman. According to the report, the man and the woman were then approached by officers from the state police agency that patrols Exposition Park. Those officers determined that a physical altercation involving the man and the woman had occurred. It is the victim in question declined medical assistance at that time. So additional information here, and that is that it was a state police agency. So it wasn't even LAPD or the sheriffs that were patrolling that area. But from that report to me, it seems like they're the ones that made the call. Now, they're the ones that determined after seeing them that something had happened. But obviously, this concerned citizen is the one who first saw something. Now, there might have been other witnesses, but it seems like there was just one person who reported this. So we'll see if that adds anything. Again, we talked about this on the last episode. If there is a video, it has been yet to surface. The fact that the victim declined medical assistance, at this point, I think this is all just going to be in the lawyers in terms of when it comes to the courtroom. But in terms of Major League Baseball's investigation, I just think there's no question that there is going to be additional punishment that Julio Urías is going to face. Regarding the new information that was just dropped, Reina, do you have any thoughts, anything else you want to add to that?
I mean, I think it kind of goes with what you said. Regardless of what happens in the court of law, I think MLB is going to run their own investigation, and because there was an incident, kind of like what we discussed on the last episode, right? There's going to be the court of public opinion, and this just can't stand because it's not okay, regardless of what the outcome is in the legal system.
Babyface, do you have any questions on the new information that was released on Urías?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that we need to understand is that it's two separate entities, right? It's MLB and it's the legal, departments. Because I got a lot of messages saying, we still get it. Bauer didn't do anything. Bauer do it, and hey, you can say that or whatever, but in the legal world, right? But like we said, it's a separate issue. It's MLB. MLB is stating, hey, you broke our rules. You did this, you did that. It's a bad look. It's a stain on it's on the franchise, on MLB, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why there's punishment coming from them. And like I said, same thing's going to happen here. Even if Julio would not be charged, he is going to face, punishment from MLB.
Exactly. And so, I mean, that's all. Again, we're going to give you, look, go back and listen to that episode if you want to hear our opinions on it. At this point, we're just going to give you information, whatever is being reported, and the facts, and we will go ahead and relay it to you as we get it. But let's get into some actual baseball. The Dodgers, they're going through a little rough patch here, and I don't blame them. So let's go back. I want to talk about the Bravo series, because the Bravo series seemed to put a real damper on everybody's feelings on this team, their expectations on this team. The Bravos came into Los Angeles and they won 3 out of 4. And you had said something on a prior episode, Babyface. So I want to start off with you. When you had said, if you go into someone else's home and you beat them, don't those wins count a little more? So the fact that the Bravos came in here and took 3 out of 4 from the Dodgers, in your mind, does that mean that the Bravos are clearly the better team?
I mean, obviously that weekend they were definitely the better team, but same thing. Dodgers went into Atlanta, right, and won 2 out of 3. So it's, I know it's a different time of the season when they did that. I mean, the Braves, obviously they came out and this past weekend, and they brought it to the Dodgers, right? I mean, they exposed them in their starting pitchers, right, and it just looked like they were a little bit, even though the Dodgers were playing really good going into that series. I mean, the Braves just looked like they were gelling a little bit better. So, I mean, even though some of those games were close, like we had mentioned, I thought those games were going to be pretty close, and I think you even mentioned this to Roberts, is that series probably could have went 2-2, right? It probably could have been a split with a couple hits here and there. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, if they do match up with them in the playoffs, obviously being in the NLCS, it's going to be a pretty tough matchup, and it'd be interesting to see. But I think these two teams, they do know each other pretty well. They do match up pretty good. So if we do get an NLCS between them two, I mean, it's definitely going to be a good series.
Reina, what was your biggest takeaway from that series against the Bravos? Because your positivity, I mean, I know you're not going to be, I saw a lot of this on social media. I mean, the white flag was raised. It's over. I mean, what's the point? Just end the season now because we can't play with the Braves. What were your takeaways from that series?
I wasn't as worried. Do I want to lose? No. But at the same time, like, we're not in a do or die situation where we have to win every game. And I also don't, like I said, while I don't want to lose, I don't necessarily want to show the Braves everything before we get to the postseason too. Our guys are probably not holding anything back. They had a couple rough games, but at the same time, like, in the grand scheme of things, we're doing okay. So as long as we can buckle it up, tighten everything up before the postseason, I think we'll be fine.
I mean, it was very interesting because it wasn't until that Sunday game when Bobby Miller just pitched a gem of a game. He was very good there. It really struck me, especially after Saturday's game, because Saturday's game was a very winnable game. So if they had won that Saturday game, they could have split the series very easily 2-2. And do we look at that series differently then? Do we sit there and go, hey, these teams are pretty evenly matched? Because let me tell you, if the Dodgers win on Saturday, they win the season series against the Bravos. They take 4 out of 7 against them this year. And it's like, look, the Dodgers can compete with the Braves. But the things that happened in that series, it felt very much like a playoff series. It felt like this is the kind of stuff that we've seen in the past from the Dodgers when they aren't successful. And that is execution, runners in scoring position. I think about that play on Saturday. I mean, there's a couple of plays that you can go back to, but on Saturday, the Dodgers had the bases loaded with no outs, and Will Smith hit into a double play. If you can somehow avoid hitting into a double play, if let's say you hit a sacrifice fly and maybe someone else then ends up hitting a ground ball to the right side and you score 2 runs instead of 1 run in that inning, the Dodgers end up winning that game, right?
You
So
mean
they had
small ball?
exactly what the Reina's been, pleading for, small ball, right? But that's also, you got to give the Bravos credit because that's what good teams do, right? They limit the damage. So the Dodgers, who had the bases loaded with no outs, and you're thinking they're going to put up a crooked number in this series, and they're looking good. I mean, we really, and friend of the carne asada, Rob Bradford brought this up, and it's like we are victims of the moment, right? We just sit there and it's like immediately what's going on here. And it's like, look, there's still a lot of baseball left. And what's happening now isn't necessarily is what's going to happen in the playoffs. So for me, and then when I asked Roberts that question, he even brought up they could have came back. They almost stole Thursday's game. They had an opportunity to at least tie that game. They had an opportunity to come back and win that game. And if they did that and they take care of business on Saturday, the Dodgers win 3 out of 4, and you have a completely different feeling about this team, even though you have the same issues with this team, which we're going to get into. So that to me, look, I'm not trying to convince myself, but Reina, you're chomping at the bit. What am I saying wrong?
But isn't that baseball though? Like, I was mad that one of the a big call didn't go our way. Like, it was
the strikeout on Mookie,
egregious ball like that, and that got called a strike. Like, but that's baseball. Like, in any given game, that could go the other team, like against them, and then we win. And it's like, that's baseball. So,
like, that's what to me is my biggest takeaway is these games against the Bravos are going to be close. Mm-hmm. The margin for error for the Dodgers is much smaller than the margin for error for the Bravos. The Dodgers have to basically play perfect baseball to beat the Bravos. I don't know if you can say the same thing about the Bravos. I think the Bravos can be a little off their game and still win the game. After seeing this series with the Dodgers, I feel like the Dodgers cannot let opportunities like that. When you have the bases loaded and no outs, you can't. And then the other thing is that the starting pitching has to be better, because what was obvious was the difference was the starting pitching in that series.
Wouldn't you say that it was exposed, though? Like, that exposed it so that they could work through that through all of September. And then we are seeing, like, the rookies they are stepping up. And while Robert said on that past Sunday game, it's not the same as the postseason, but they're doing a great job. So if we're exposing the gaps in some of the starting pitching with the more veteran pitchers, we still have the rest of September to work those kinks out and then get the rookies geared up. So if anything, I feel like it just gives us more information to get to the postseason.
Well, I mean, at this point, the way the Dodgers starting rotation is going, I think you don't have any options but to turn to these rookies. But that to me was the difference, because with the Dodgers bullpen, except for poor Alex Vesia, who just made a horrible mistake. I mean, he left one right over the plate. And that Bravos lineup, it 1 through 9. And that's, again, for me, what is the difference is that Bravos lineup made every Dodger starting pitcher earn every at bat. And if you cannot put these guys away, they're going to make you pay for it. They keep making you throw more pitches, and sooner or later, the more pitches you throw, you're going to make a mistake. So what Bobby Miller could do is what Lance Lynn and Julio couldn't do Thursday and Friday. And that was put these hitters away when you had 2 strikes on them. Bobby Miller could do it. Emmett Sheehan was successful in doing that. He left a pitch 3-0 right over the plate on Ronald Acuna, but it seemed like if you have the stuff, the swing and miss stuff to put people away, that's an advantage. When you don't, the Bravos are going to make you pay. So to me, this series was a mixed bag. The starting pitching did not look good in the first 2 games. With the exception of Vesia, I thought the bullpen was very strong. And the Bravos bullpen, who's supposed to be like one of the best bullpens in Major League Baseball, did not look very impressive in that series. Babyface, am I just being a Pollyanna here? Am I grasping at straws? But looking back at it, to me, I kind of feel like, hey, the Dodgers, they can compete with this team. They just do need to play perfect baseball to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at that Thursday game, and they lost 8-7, right? And they were down pretty big, right? Wasn't it like
7-1?
Yeah. So I mean, they came all the way back. They had a chance in the 8th and I believe in the 9th, right, to actually to tie that game or win that game. But one of those things, like you're saying, perfect baseball. You know, obviously Lance Lynn gave up a lot of home runs in that game as well. So that's becoming an issue, right? We saw again also in Miami. But also there was a big error by Max Muncy in that game. That error doesn't happen, they probably win that game. So when you're talking about being perfect, like Max Muncy he's making me nervous at third base a lot. Now, every time that ball goes to Max Muncy, like either he doesn't play it correctly or he ends up throwing it away. So that is something that needs to be tightened up going into the playoffs, because you don't want, an error costing you a playoff game.
Is that the shoulder injury, you think, too, playing into it? Is he playing a little bit hurt? Has he come back too soon?
Well, he had said on that error is like he didn't position himself correctly to throw the ball.
Right.
So that's what he said on that error.
I know this is going to make La Reina very happy, but Babyface, didn't it feel very different when Kike was playing third?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, right now I'm feeling really like when Muncie's at third and the ball's hit to him. I mean, he does a pretty good job sometimes kind of fielding those plays, but when he's throwing that ball across the diamond, is kind of like, is it is it gonna
get straight there? Where's it gonna?
Is it gonna bounce? And a lot of those plays, he's kind of, he's needing Freddie to get that pick. So that's something, like I said, we need to make sure that Max Muncy is able to just make that play, get it over to first, and just keep it going.
Reina, the shoulder injury though, didn't that happen after Muncie's, or do you think he's been battling this shoulder injury for a while?
Well, because he came out of the game. I'm trying to think.
That was Sunday, the game that we were.
Game that he came out of? Yeah, but I'm wondering, is it something that led up to that before he came out of it? Okay, I'm thinking of Sunday leading into the Marlins. So, yeah, my mistake. But I'm just wondering, does that factor in? Did it just happen during that at bat, or is it something that he's been battling, and now we're just seeing it play out in a lot of these games?
Well, I mean, let's go to Miami because they show up on Tuesday, and it's right after the whole Julio thing happened. So I know we talked about it on the last episode. How much of that game, that loss on Tuesday, was that attributed to they were distracted? They're dealing with the Julio thing, because it was a close game. It was 3-3 until, that I think it was the 8th inning when the Marlins, I think, ended up scoring 3 runs on 2 home run balls. The 2 home run balls. But let me start there first. Reina, were they distracted on Tuesday? Do you think they've been distracted that whole series in Miami until Thursday, when all of a sudden it looked like, hey, the Dodgers showed up in Miami all of a sudden?
I don't see how you couldn't. I mean, if we're fans on the outside and we're not even in that clubhouse, and we're all deeply impacted by this. You see it on social media. You saw it with us. Like, how could you not? These people play with that person in their clubhouse. That person's not there. They're having to deal with media. How could you not be distracted? How could it not impact you? So I definitely think it played a role.
And I think, Babyface, you get your point, right? Because Roberts, I think, word for word said what you were going to say when they asked him about Julio.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll add that to the point chart.
I mean, this is going to be the standard. Hey, this is all I know. This is all I can say, and that's kind of what he said. But I mean, if you ask any one of those players, I mean, they're going to tell you no, they aren't distracted, right? That's kind of they're not a team that goes out there and gives you excuses. But it does probably play into. I mean, they're human, right? We're all human. I think we were all distracted as fans, right? Like we're like, it's on your mind. So I think it does probably go in there, and it affects them a bit. But could have been that day, and maybe a little bit, in the second game. But it looks like they're coming out of it. They had a big game, 10 runs right? It was 10 runs today.
Yeah.
So they're they're heading to Washington now, and Washington. Normally we think Washington like they're pretty bad, but I mean they've been playing better as of late. So we'll see how this weekend goes for them.
Yeah, no, I mean I don't think it's anything of a cakewalk going into Washington in this series. I want to, because it's that first game of the series, I want to talk about the Clayton Kershaw situation. I know a lot of people are just like, oh man, it looks like Kershaw's done. He's not going to make it. Kershaw, to me, I don't think he pitched that bad. But the problem is you're comparing him to his past. I mean, it's hard to compete with a ghost, right? It's like every time Kershaw goes out there, it's not just, hey, he gave us a quality start. When Kershaw's out there, you expect Kershaw to go 7 innings and pitch shutout ball. And it's just, unfortunately, the last 2 starts, that's not what we've seen. But look, this is his last 2 starts. In Miami, he pitched 5 innings. He gave up 3 earned runs. Okay, I don't think that's disastrous. It's better than some of the other pitchers on the Dodgers. Prior to that, against the Serpientes, he went 5 innings, and he only gave up 1 earned run. So I know a lot was made about his velocity because, especially in Miami, he didn't hit 90 at all. I think, to me, the biggest concern is his control. Prior to his last 2 starts, prior to that start against the Serpientes, the most he had walked in a game in this season, he had 2 walks. Against the Serpientes, he walked 3, and what was very alarming against Miami was he walked 5. So if his velocity is down and he doesn't have control, that seems like a recipe for disaster in the playoffs. And to this man's credit, if you watch that post-game interview on Tuesday, they repeatedly asked him. Friend of the carne asada, Juan Toribio asked him. Jack Harris asked him. Fabian asked him. Plunkett asked him. I mean, 4 of the beat writers there asked him the same thing. Is your shoulder affecting you? And I don't think Dave Roberts did Kershaw any favors by saying Kershaw's shoulder is affecting him. Now, Kershaw was never going to use that as an excuse. And that's why he was like, I'm fine. And it wasn't like a very reassuring fine. The more he kept saying, I'm fine, all I kept hearing is, you're not fine, dude. You're not fine, but it is in you that you just will not ever use an injury as an excuse. I think there's so many other pitchers who would sit there and go, yeah, my shoulder is bothering me. I just couldn't do it. But you're not going to hear that from Kershaw. So I have a couple questions for you guys on this one. Reina, first of all, how concerned are you about Kershaw's health?
I mean, he's fine. We don't have to be concerned, right? I mean, like you said, this is what, his 16th year?
Yes.
Like you can't compare him to the past. He's going to do the best that he can.
Let me stop you right there. I agree with you that we shouldn't, but do you think Kershaw compares himself to the past?
100%. He's going to hold himself to a higher standard. And, after he repeated that he was fine, he's going to work with Pryor. They're going to go in and look and see, what is affecting his pitching. He's going to be in that room looking at all of that game tape and just trying to identify, if not how to fix it, what they can do to at least get him to the finish line. So he's going to put in the work. I guess it's one of those things, like, we can't control it. Like, we can couch manage, we can do whatever we want, but at the end of the day, he's going to do the best that he can do. Who are we going to get to replace him?
Nobody.
So we take what we can get, hope that whatever they find in those tapes, they can, fix it or at least put a Band-Aid on it. And he goes out there and he does the best that he can, because he's going to give his all. It's not like he's ever going to go out there and do it halfway. So am I concerned? I mean, sure. Do I want him to do, I don't even want to say better, because that means he's doing a bad job, but do I want him to pitch up to the standard he wants to? Absolutely. So, just hope for the best.
Exactly. And expect the worst. So, Babyface, Roberts came out there and said it is too late in the season to give him what I'm assuming they're talking about was he took an epidural in that shoulder before he went on the DL. And so it is either obviously it didn't work, or it's just not healing, or this is just 16 years of wear and tear that you're just not going to bounce back, right? So if the option is they can't give him another shot, and giving him rest isn't really going to make the situation better, he just has to pitch through this. How concerned are you about Kershaw? Is he going to make it to the postseason?
Well, right now, I mean, if you get 5 innings of Kershaw, 3-run ball, right, you're going to take that, right? Especially in the playoffs, right? You're going to take that, right? You're going to take that over Lance Lynn giving you 7 innings, but he gives up 6, and 3 of those are home runs, right?
Yeah.
So as long as Kershaw is fine, like he says he's fine, and if he knows his body and he knows he can go out there and compete, as long as he's not gonna hurt himself, right, or is like really hurt and he can't compete, then I'm gonna trust in Kershaw, and I'm gonna trust that what he can do and go out there and compete. And like I said, if he could only give us 5, 3 runs or less, you're gonna take it.
Reina, do the Dodgers have a responsibility to protect Kershaw from himself? Like, if I know they say, well, he's not giving him rest isn't going to make him any better, but throwing him out there the way he is, is this doing more harm than good? I mean, do they really need to say to him, thank you, man. You've done everything for us. You had a great season, but this is just, we got snake bit, and this is just something we didn't. I mean, do they owe it to protect him? And also, what do they owe the rest of the team? Because if Kershaw keeps going out there and he's struggling, but he's putting out a valiant effort, but he's putting the team behind the 8 ball because, let's say, he's giving up more than 3 runs. He's going less than 5 innings. I mean, what is the Dodgers organization? What is their role here? Don't they owe it to the other 25 guys in that clubhouse that we got to put the best people out there to win games?
A couple things. So it's a collaborative process in that clubhouse, right? Kershaw is going to fight to go out there no matter what. I'm assuming from what we know. But at the same time, like they've got the best doctors, the best, physical therapists, everybody on that team. If he can't go out there, they're not going to let him go out there. So I don't think it's a matter of like, do they owe him anything? They're going to have those conversations. So whether it's protecting him from himself or not, they've got the staff that can actually pull that off. As far as like him going out there and pitching, I mean, this is not a knock against Lance Lynn, but we saw the numbers from the last 2 games. You can't say that Kersh is hurting the team or hurting the guys on there, because Lance Lynn is not injured for what we know. And, his numbers the last 2 games, they're a little rough, but he's doing his best. So if he's not injured, if he's not hurting himself more, I don't think he's necessarily a detriment to the team. And then to kind of your last point, okay, then who are we bringing in? Because we're already struggling to get that 5-man rotation. So then even if we're piggybacking some of our guys and you miraculously get Walker back and he can come back for multiple innings and we're not going to hurt him, who are you going to get to replace Kersh if you can even get him off the field?
You know who we're going to bring in the postseason? Ryan Pepio.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes. So, I mean, we're going to get the popote in a minute there.
That's right.
Go ahead, Reina.
I mean, kind of to just, you guys were talking about this with the Boatman, I think a week ago, like the Dodgers are not going to hurt their players. So, I mean, contrary to what Cody Bellinger and his manager are saying, it's a collaborative process. So I'm not worried.
Babyface, this is one of those classic, there are different rules, different set of rules for different players. So if this was anyone else, the Dodgers would probably be like, hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it. But because this is Clayton Kershaw, like Lorena said, this is a collaborative process. I don't know how collaborative this is. I think this is Kershaw going in there like, hell, you guys are shutting me down.
And you've got Gonsolin, who pitched all season, though, not doing well. So we don't know.
That's a very interesting point there, Reina. But, I mean, Babyface, this is going to be Kershaw's call, right? Regardless of what we see, regardless of what the results are, if he can physically go out there and pick up a baseball and throw it, he's going to go out there and pitch, right?
Yeah, and I think didn't Robert say that? He said Kershaw's going to go until he can't go, right? It's kind of
Right. So I mean, they're not. This is not their decision. It's Kershaw, right?
yeah. I mean, I think unless he physically cannot go, he's not going to go. And I think the competitor that Kershaw is, he's going to continue to give it his all. Every time he goes out there, he gives it all. Even in these games, right? And game in Miami, like how important is that game to the Dodgers? Like in the spectrum of the season, right? Not really nothing, right? Like it's not nothing for him to like really go out there and like just like give it his entire everything he's got, right? But that's Kershaw. That's the competitor that he is. And I think going forward, he'll go to the playoffs and he's going to compete. That's Kershaw. That's who we've known, and that's who we love, right? For the last 16 years, we know who Clayton Kershaw is.
It may not be important in terms of the standings, but for me, it's important in this aspect. Since he came back from his injury, it was about stretching him out, right? So if he's limited, they're not going to be able to stretch him out. So I think they started off with 5 innings, slowly working him up to maybe getting 6. I think 6 was the most that they were hoping to get out of Kershaw. But now, and it's gonna segue into, I want to talk about the whole pitching staff, the starting rotation, and how we're getting into the playoffs. But I understand your point in terms of the standings. I don't think it's important, but in terms of building Kershaw up for the postseason, the fact that he's experiencing this right now, that's where it's important, because I think either you're not going to be able to build him up for more than 5 innings and just hope you get through 5 innings. So we're going to see that. So what I want to do is let's take a quick break right now. And then when we come back from the break, I want to get into the Dodgers starting pitching rotation. Okay, so the Dodgers starting pitching is, if you read what's on social media, it's in shambles. We don't even have a pitching rotation. It's not that we have a bad pitching rotation. People are just like, literally, we don't have a pitching rotation. So, of course, the loss of Julio is huge. Now, the thing is Julio was really inconsistent this year. There was that stretch when he came back from his injury where he was pitching really well, and everybody's like, Julio's back. But then the last couple of starts, he just didn't look like himself. So it's like, who knows what version of Julio you were going to get in the playoffs. Now that Kershaw and the shoulder barking issue, it's like, is Kershaw even going to? So if you lose 2 of your starters going into the rotation, this is literally what you have left. Lance Lynn, who, if you listen to all those managers on social media, have already said you cannot allow him to pitch in the postseason. So I want to start off with Lance Lynn. So Lance Lynn, his last 2 starts, these are his numbers. He's basically gone 4 2/3, gave up 8 earned runs. 4 1/3, gave up 7 earned runs. He has not looked good at all. This is not the same Lance Lynn that we saw when he first arrived on the team. The home runs are an issue. Reina, is this just a blip in a long season? That with Lance Lynn, it's 2 bad starts? Or is this concerning to you where you factor in, hey, when we traded him, his ERA, when we traded for him, his ERA was over 6. So this is who this guy is. This is the season this guy's having. I mean, he had a great quote where it's like, yeah, I've given up 40 home runs. Does it freaking matter? 40 or 30? This is the most home runs I've ever given up, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I mean, the poor guy, I give him credit. He answers the questions and he owns up to it. He's perplexed. He's trying to fix it. But how concerned are you about Lance Lynn?
I mean, I'm concerned. I obviously want him to pitch well, but the same grace that we're giving the offense right now of, oh, maybe they're distracted, that's why we're not hitting much. I think you've got to also extend that to the pitchers. They're also feeling the pressure. Does that go for the Atlanta series or I mean, we won the Boston series, or not the Boston series, but the game that he pitched in Boston, 7-4. Yeah. We lost 8-7, and
he only gave up 3 runs in that Boston game.
Right.
It's the last 2 games. Those are the ones that look really bad and have caused his ERA to balloon with the Dodgers.
And those are the games where we know the offense is going to have to bolster him, right? And we almost did, if not for that Muncy error. And then, that Atlanta kind of coming back in that last inning, we could have potentially won. And yeah, what he gave up sucks, but we were able to bolster him with those runs. We couldn't quite pull that off on, what was it, Wednesday's game? It was 4-11. He gave up a lot. But at the same time, again, we're giving the players grace for that Marlins game for the offense. We need to do that with him too. He could have been distracted. He could have had a bad day.
I mean, babyface, to you in the Lance Lynn situation, I know you thought I think you said this at the Bravo series that it's like he's going to be a problem. And look, this is one of those things where I know everybody loves Mark Pryor and they all think Mark Pryor can work miracles. Look, Noah Syndergaard, and hopefully this is not the case with Lance Lynn, but maybe Mark Pryor is not a miracle worker, or these two pitchers are Mark Pryor proof. How concerned are you on Lance Lynn?
I mean, so Lynn, he came over, he had like 4 or 5 starts, right? That he pitched good, right? He pitched pretty good, right? On all those until the Braves won and the Miami one.
Yeah.
And even the Miami game, he got into the 5th.
Yeah.
And he hadn't given up anything. It's just kind of that inning where he imploded. And I think the strategy with him is, if they're going to use him in the playoffs, is he's kind of going to go, inning by inning, like, right? If he goes first, second, third, fourth, pretty good, 5th, first sign of trouble, that's kind of where they're going to have to give him the hook, right? Because we've kind of seen what is happening with him. It happens and it happens fast and all of a sudden. So I think they might have to take that approach, but he was getting to the 5th, and I think that he gave up those 3 home runs in that inning, and then they kind of just went south. So it's concerning, yes, that he's giving up all those home runs, but I think if they manage it correctly with him, they might be okay.
Look, here to me is what's glaringly obvious, and this is going to lead to my segue into these rookies. What we saw this with Julio. We see it with Lance Lynn, and this, especially this last start with Kershaw, we saw the inability to put hitters away, the inability to have swing and miss stuff is a huge factor in Major League Baseball right now. And when you look at these rookies, when you look at Bobby Ice, when you look at Popote, and when you look at Emmett Sheehan, these guys have swing and miss stuff. And because they have swing and miss stuff, they're able to limit the damage. They're able to let, they're able to hold these offenses down. So let's get into it. I know before all this stuff happened with Julio, and it seemed like Bobby Miller going to get a start in the NLDS? Will Bobby Miller he won't get a start until the NLCS because he'll be your number 4? Right now, I know a lot of people are making the case that Bobby Miller might be pitching game 1 of the NLDS, and he's going to be pitching at home. I mean, Bobby Miller, like what he did against the Bravos is impressive, and I feel, Dave Roberts said this, La Reina and I were there on Sunday. They had asked him, and he says, it's something Bobby Miller has picked up becoming a major league pitcher a lot quicker than a lot of other rookies do. And he compared him to Walker Buehler. The last time he saw a rookie pitcher pick things up as quickly as Bobby Miller's doing is when Walker Buehler did it. And he's talking about that 2018 postseason run where you could argue that Walker Buehler was the best pitcher the Dodgers had in 2018. So if Bobby Miller is going to follow along that path, and he's going to pitch like Buehler pitched in 2018, I'll take that. I mean, at this point, to what La Reina had said, if Kershaw is not healthy, look, use the month of September and build up these rookies. Because to me, it's looking like this is who we're going to go with in the postseason, is the rookies. You're going to go, if you can get Kershaw, great. But you're going to have Bobby Miller. You're going to, and to me, right after Bobby Miller, especially with the performance that he had on Thursday, 6 2/3 of no-hit ball. I mean, Ryan Popote's numbers are very impressive since he's come up. I mean, he's pitched 5 innings, only gave up 1 run. And then his next 4 innings, only gave up 1 earned run. Then he went 5 innings and gave up no earned runs. He went 7, close to 7 today, and gave up no runs. And what is so impressive is he has not walked more than 1 batter in those games. He's getting strikeouts. I think Popote is making a case that he needs to be considered for a start in the postseason. And Emmett Sheehan, I'm very eager to see what he does. If you give Emmett Sheehan that runway the rest of the season, he looked good against the Bravos too. Let's see. Look, at this point, what do you have to lose? You've already overachieved this year. Now, I don't think anybody expected the Dodgers to be where they're at right now. So maybe you just roll the dice and, hey, maybe these rookies get hot. They get ridiculous because they don't know any better. Yeah, I totally get that the postseason is different and the pressure might get to them. But it might not get to these guys because they don't know. They don't know what to expect. Reina, what are your thoughts on Bobby Miller, Popote, and Sheehan?
I think that's my biggest concern, right, with the postseason is just nerves. Like I think it was Bobby, he said during his interview on Sunday that, he felt good. This was his second time seeing the Braves. He debuted against the Braves and won. And now he's coming up against them the second time. And, he said he was super focused. He felt comfortable going into that game. So my only concern is, do they let the postseason jitters get them? Even if you have him either start first or second, you give Kershaw the first start, just even to give them a bridge to those nerves. Does that shake them just a little bit just because of the moment and it's so big? Or do they continue to do like what at least Miller and Pepio have done, is just go with it and just kind of calmly pitch through that game? Sheehan, I think I would be a little more reserved about. I would still probably run like a piggyback with him. But I think if you're running something with like Miller, Pepio, Kershaw, not necessarily in that order, I think that's kind of how you have to move at this point.
Babyface, how you feeling about these rookies? Are you ready to ride with these rookies in the postseason?
So Bobby Miller in game 1, and I think Cody Snavely, he wrote a piece on Dodgers Beat, in support of that as well recently. I'm kind of liking that idea. I mean, you put this guy out there, he's at home, I'm not going to say not a lot of pressure, but I think maybe the pressure is a little less, right? Because it's at home, not on the road. But I think you want to put some electricity in that stadium. You put Bobby Miller on that mound, right? I mean, he'd probably be facing, it's going to be the winner of the Brewers, and right now that third wild card's crazy. I mean, right now at this moment it's Arizona, but like yesterday it was Miami, and then Cincinnati's like right there as well. The Giants are starting to fade, so it might be one of those teams. It'd be the Brewers, Arizona, Miami, or maybe the Reds. So, I mean, you never know. Like you said, you bring this guy out there in first playoff game, just start it off, with a bang, right? Put this guy out there, and I mean, he's proven he's built for that moment. Like you said, comparing him to Buehler, he's kind of in that same mode, right? He's kind of built for that. So it'd be interesting to see him. But the other guys, Pepio, Sheehan, like Amy was saying, like, yeah, maybe Sheehan might have a piggyback type of game. I'd be kind of more comfortable with that. But I mean, Pepio's holding his own as well. His all his appearances since he's been up, he's been great. I think it's kind of like a Bleedlow's bump kind of effect. Didn't we talk to him before he came up? So, and he's been lights out, and so I'm just saying, right? So, but yeah, I mean, I think the rookies are going to be a huge part of this postseason.
Yeah, look, I think La Reina brought something out that really concerns me, and you did too, Babyface, the piggyback idea, because the way things are right now, Bobby Miller, I think, is the only guy that you could probably have any semblance of confidence that could maybe pitch 7 innings in a game. Other than that, to me, it seems like all these games are going to be piggyback games in the postseason. And that's concerning to me because the more you use your bullpen, the more decisions you have to make, the more opportunities for something to go wrong will go wrong. And I feel like we saw that last year. We saw that in the Show Pod series when we couldn't get length from our starters. And all right, well, it's okay. We're going to bring in our reliever in the 6th. Then we'll go to this guy in the 7th. We'll go to this guy in the 8th. And then we'll go to this guy in the 9th. So that's 4 moves. So all you need is for one guy of those 4 to totally screw the pooch on it, and you lose the game. As opposed to if you can get a starter to go 7, and now instead of making 4 pitching changes, you're only making you know what I'm saying? You reduce your chances of something going wrong. That is my concern. We're going to burn this bullpen in the playoffs, and I hope we don't burn it in the first series before we get to the Bravos. But if Kershaw's giving you 4 and not 5, if Buehler's only going to give, I mean, we haven't even talked about what they're going to do with Walker Buehler. Is Walker Buehler even going to be an option for the postseason? I mean, here's the thing. It's like, if you're going to use Walker for 2, that means the bullpen's coming in again. And if Popote, goes short, it's another bullpen game. So it's what concerns me. And it's also what concerns me about the Dodgers front office is they overthink things. They completely ignore the eye test. They have to show that they're the smartest person in the room. I feel like there's a huge recipe for everything to go wrong. I would love for these young kids in this month of September, give them enough rope. Let's see, let's prepare them. Let's try to stretch them out as long as we can to see if they can give you any length in the postseason. Reina, I know you're chomping at the bit. What am I saying wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, we do have a history of this. Brandon Morrow, we wore him out.
Yes.
He was a great pitcher, and we buried him. But
yeah, by the time he got to the World Series, I felt so bad because he had such a great season. But he was on fumes in that World Series.
Right, but then it's great to talk about, let's give them a leash, but you're also balancing that against, hey, let's also keep them healthy because these rookies are the best pitchers we've got right now. So it's nice to have a shoulda, woulda, coulda list or a, if only list, but at the same time, this is what we have. So we may be piggybacking, we may be dipping into the bullpen, and there's nothing we can do to change that. It might just be we all have to adjust our mindset and we get as far as we get. And hopefully, we didn't think we'd get this far at the beginning of the year. Hopefully being able to limp along will get us there. But I would just be concerned. Yes, I want to stretch them out, give them a little bit more leash, but also let's not hurt them, because then now what? The guy who could give you 7 innings, now he's at maybe 4 or 5. And now, great, you just burned 2 more innings. And that's not even getting into the other guys.
Babyface, are you ready for bullpen games in the playoffs?
So you're saying, if we get a start of 5, right, then we need 4 guys, right? But potentially, right, you want to have, 5, 6 guys that are ready to go, right? So that brings me to another point. Roberts, I think he had mentioned he has a trust tree or something like that. He calls it a trust tree of his relievers. So who do you trust in that bullpen? If we're going to need, say, 5 guys, 6 guys, who do you trust in that pen to come out, right? I mean, so Phillips, right?
Right.
Brazier.
Yeah.
Right.
Brazier's earned it. Brazier's
right?
earned it to be on that
so,
tree.
Gratterall's going to be there.
Exactly.
So that's 3, right? Miller's doing really good.
Shelby
he's come back. Yeah, Shelby Miller. So there's 4 guys, right? So then after that, who else do you have? You think Gus Marlin's going to be around?
Gus need Marlin, a lefty.
Vesia?
You need a lefty.
Vesia? So Vesia's your guy, or Victor Gonzalez?
What about Ferguson?
Caleb? Caleb.
You're Caleb. You need a lefty because the Bravos have Matt Olson. You're going to see Matt Olson. You're going to need somebody to pitch to Matt Olson late in games.
So they're probably going to need 2 lefties, right? So it's probably going to be Ferguson and Vesia, right? More than likely, right?
But look, hey, the bullpen has been good. They've had a couple of hiccups, but that happens to a bullpen over a season. The problem is in a series, you can't look. If you're throwing those guys every day, it catches up to you. I think that's what happened in the Show Pod series. That Game 4, how many times had they already seen Almonte in that series? That's what's concerning to me, and that's why I hope we can get some length from the starters. But I also know the mentality is you don't want to see that. You don't want them to go a second time through the lineup or a third time through the lineup. That's what's concerning to me, and that's why I would just love for September, take the leash off of these guys. Like, Reina, I was convinced if Popote had a no-hitter going in the 8th, he was going to get pulled. There is no way that Roberts was going to let Popote throw 95 to 100 pitches to try to get that no-hitter.
If he pulled Kersh for, in a no-hitter, he's not going to hesitate from pulling Pepio. There's, hey, great game. You got us this far. Now let's put in somebody else.
I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like I kind of saw Dave Roberts cheer when Popote gave up that hit, because I felt like, yes, I don't have to make that decision. I'm not going to have to answer those questions again.
Well, I don't know, because it was a perfect game. So his pitch count was still pretty low, right? He was in the in the mid 60s, 60s.
Well,
70s, right?
yeah. He had to make a little more. He had to make a few more pitches. I mean, that 6th inning, he only made 5 pitches.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have let him if he would have got out that 7th inning, 8th and 9th.
Didn't he pull Sheehan earlier in the year too?
Yeah,
and he made his debut. Going. Yeah. And he pulled him.
Yeah, I think, like I said, if he would have got out that 7th, still perfect, he would have continued.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm encouraged. I'm telling you, after the Bravo series, especially the first 2 games, after Thursday and Friday, when everybody was, overreaction city, oh, we suck, we're not doing anything. And then you hear the news of Julio, and then you hear, Kershaw. It's like, oh, man, it's just the writing's on the wall. The Dodgers are just snake bit. I don't know, man. I feel like these rookies, they might surprise. They might give us a fighting chance.
I think we also, again, we forget how spoiled we are. Yeah, they just lost 2 series, but we won the last 9 series. And also, it's been a long season. They're tired. They're going to drop some games. It doesn't feel good, especially when it's up against somebody like the Braves. But still, these are good teams. And it wasn't like they were, killing us. They were close games. Like, we did a good job. It's, like I said, it's not great, but there are worse things that could be happening right now. So I think just all take a moment and breathe.
There are worse things happening right now. We're just not going to focus on them.
There are. So considering that situation, or any situation, we're still doing pretty good. We're still at the top of the league. So breathe.
Babyface, yeah. Do you want to add anything before we transition over to the picks?
Yeah. We've said this all along, right? I mean, the postseason obviously is a different animal, and we'll see what happens, right? I mean, they've been playing good. We want them to continue playing, pick it up in September, and then, like we said, it's kind of that roll of the dice. I think if they come out firing in that first series and they kind of play how they've been playing, it's going to be, it's going to be really bode well for them. But, you just can't have them come out flat like they did last year, because, those early round exits don't feel so good.
But do you think that, like, Mookie and Freddie are going to let that happen this year too, especially as we've finally found that cohesion in the second half? Or do you think, like, they bolster the team because they are the veterans and we have all that other leadership? You've got Kike and Rojas bringing the fun in. So, like, do you think that factors in where maybe it's a little different than last year?
Well, I mean, they want to win, but like you said, it's baseball and anything could happen. And that's kind of like what I've always been saying about last season. Like, it was baseball, and that's why the Dodgers lost to the Padres. I mean, they were games that obviously the Dodgers should have won, but it's baseball, and it happens. So it's not like, these guys obviously are going to say that, well, we're not going to let it happen. But like I said, what I feel different about this roster is kind of the veteran presence, right? Of like guys like Hayward and Peralta, and I think those guys are going to make the difference. Maybe in those games where maybe they're low scoring games and they need a big hit. I think some of those guys are gonna do it for them this year, which is the difference from last season.
If you have any kind of magic potion, I think that's a perfect point, Roger. Like, you've got the veterans, you've got the rookies who are chomping at the bit to prove their stuff. You've got the fun of Kike bringing back the rally banana, maybe, I don't know, Rojas doing whatever he's doing, and Peralta. Like, they all together, like, they bring that fun. And then you've also got like Mookie and Freddie, like they're leading like crazy. Freddie's leading in like doubles. He's about to break a record. Mookie just hit his 250th, 251st home run. Like they're all doing great things. So I think if anything, this is like the everything kind of coming together in the perfect moment. Is it perfect in and of itself of what we would have ordered for a season? No, but like you've got a lot of components that are working together in their favor.
Thank you for reminding me, Reina. We have an update, and that this was something that I don't think a lot of us even picked up on. But Mookie left the game on Thursday's game against the Marlins of Miami in the 8th inning, and Jack Harris is reporting. Babyface, you want to give us the update with Jack Harris from the Los Angeles Times? It was actually someone else reported it first. Jack Harris was confirming it.
Yeah, they said he left on crutches. And I guess he fouled a ball off his foot in the 8th inning, right? And I saw the replay. It looked like it just, straight ball down onto his foot. Didn't seem that serious then, but he did have x-rays negative, but he did leave on crutches, which is a little concerning. So we'll have to see what the update is, tomorrow and this weekend.
Definitely something to keep an eye on, because if you guys thought the reaction to Julio and then Kershaw was bad, can you imagine if we wake up to Mookie is done for the season, what that's going to do for the Dodgers?
Whoa, Prince of Darkness. Whoa.
If anything, what'll happen is, on StubHub, I'll probably get cheap tickets to the NLDS that way, because I know everyone will count the Dodgers out. But it is concerning to me because, I immediately, when I hear crutches, I thought about Justin Turner when Justin Turner got hit on the wrist, and he was out for a month, more so than that. So, hopefully, light the candles, do whatever you guys got to do, and hope that Mookie's okay. But, it would just be so typical of this season, right? Where it's just like, they're just snake bit. They're just, what could have happened if this team was healthy? Like, what could they accomplish? But it's something to keep an eye on. We'll see. Of course, the minute we hear anything, we will let you guys know. So let's go into our picks.
As they lead the NL West. Sorry, go on.
Hey, what are you saying? Just because their magic number is 9, I can't complain about this team?
You can do whatever you want. You're grown.
At this point, it looks like the Dodgers are probably going to clinch the division next week. I don't think they'll do it at home, but
the fact that their number is going down and they've lost 5 out of the last 7. Come on.
That is true. The magic number is 9. So I think they're probably going to clinch next week. But so nobody won the picks last week because nobody predicted a disastrous run of games here. The Dodgers ended up going 2-5. I think everybody had the reverse. Everybody was either 5-2. I had 4-3. So
I was going to pull a Roger and ask for my imaginary point for doing the opposite, but I won't.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Well, I had the numbers right, but I just didn't have them in that order. So that being said, the next group of games, we're going to do 6 games. It's going to be 3 in Washington, and then they come home to play 3 against Rogers show pods, the famous show pods. So let's go to the ladies line. So a recap before we hear the La Reina's picks. Our viewers are still in the lead. They have a 3-game lead over me. They have a 4-game lead over Babyface, and they have a 5-game lead over La Reina. And guess what? We're running out of time, man. We are running out of time. I think the viewers are in a very good position. So viewers, listeners, make sure you send in your picks. You can send them to us either via our social media, whether it's IG or Twitter, or let us know. Simeon always does a great job of tagging us and letting us know what his picks are. So that being said, let's go to the ladies line. And what are the Dodgers going to do?
I'm going to say 3-3, just because of the current situation with distractions. Mookie kind of leaving a little early on crutches. But I don't want to count us completely out. But I'm also a little worried about the Padres. Opposite of Roger, I think we do sometimes play down, and they are running on spite. Even if they're not going to maybe make it to the wild card, they're still going to try to stick it to us. So I'm going to go 3-3.
All right, La Reina's going 3-3, and I'm going to go 2-4. I think the Dodgers are going to go through a stretch right now, especially. I don't think we're gonna see Mookie in Washington this weekend. I don't think Mookie's gonna play. I also think this pitching situation, I hope we get bounce backs, but if we get another short outing from Lance Lynn, if you get another short outing from Kershaw, I think they're already factoring in a bullpen game this weekend in Washington. I think the bullpen is going to get worn out. I think the Nationals are deceptive. They're at one point, I think they were even tied with the Show Pods in the wild card standings. So I think they're going to play them tough, and then they come back home, and the Show Pods just live to beat the Dodgers. So I'm going 2-4. Babyface.
Since I'm the only positive one here, I'm going to go 4-2 on this. Yeah, I mean, I think they'll get back to where they've been and take care of business in Washington. And yeah, Show Pods they're dead.
And there you have it. We're going to end the show with the favorite pastime of Babyface, and that is shitting on the Show Pods. Any opportunity he has to shit on the Show Pods, he will. So, yo ha sido su servidor, Juan Ramírez, de parte de mis colegas, La Reina de Playa Larga, Amy Cuevas, and Babyface. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the podcast and to our YouTube channel. Nos vemos para la próxima. Adios. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by betonline.ag, where the game starts.